Good afternoon, student. Welcome to the lecture of Operation Research. In the last lecture, we have started a last unit of this paper of Operation Research, Theory of Games. With few examples, we have discussed what is a game. Game is not limited the concept only to sports. This was a broader concept, was actually defined to be a competitive situation. And the competitive situation we can face in our daily life example. In the last lecture, we have discussed this in detail. How many examples we have discussed? Election, cricket, advertising company, share market, business, marketing company, military operations, any competition, rummy game. Okay, all these are the competitive situations which we were facing in our daily life actually. Therefore, this was called as a game. Therefore, what is a game? Game must be thought of in a broad sense, not as a kind of sport, but as a competitive situation, a kind of conflict in which somebody must win and somebody must lose. Therefore, game is not only sport, this is a competitive situation. Therefore, we can relate many situations in our daily life to game. Okay. Therefore, in this game theory, we are going to study this as a type of decision theory in which one's choice of action is determined after taking into account all the possible alternatives available to the opponent playing the game, rather than just by the possibilities of several outcomes. Therefore, in this game theory, we are going to make a decision. Therefore, this is a decision theory in which we can know the choice of action by the opponent player by knowing all the possible alternatives. This theory was first initiated by a mathematician, Hungarian mathematician, physicist, computer scientist, and engineer John von Neumann. Okay, he was also called as the last representative of great mathematicians. And he was the father of game theory. Therefore, in this game theory, the mathematician Neumann has used a criteria of maximizing a minimum gain and minimizing a maximum loss. Because whenever we are going to play a game in any competitive situation, it may be a sport or it may be our daily life problems. In every situation, everyone wants to maximize the profit. And if at all we are going to face a loss, everyone want to minimize the losses. Therefore, the criteria was given by the Neumann is maximizing the minimum gain. The idea actually behind the criteria is whatever the possible alternatives, possible strategies, possible choices with a player to play a game is having, first he will find out the minimum gain by the every policy, by every strategy. Okay, again example we have discussed in detail. No, if a player is playing a game or any competitive situation, if he has three possible alternatives, three possible choices to play the game. Okay, first what he will do, he will find out the minimum profit by playing each of the option. If we choose to play the first option, first strategy, the minimum profit will be, suppose I think we are considering this to be profit in lakhs. Therefore, this will be a profit of 2 lakhs if a player A chooses to play the first strategy. Profit of 3 lakhs if the player A chooses to play the second strategy. Likewise. Therefore, these are the minimum profits of the player A if he chooses to play these three strategies respectively. Then, after knowing the minimum profit by every strategy, which strategy he will select? He will try to maximize the minimum profit. Sorry. Therefore, whatever the minimum profit he has calculated, he will select the maximum among them. Therefore, the criteria becomes maximizing the minimum gain. Therefore, this was actually the minimum gain of 3 lakhs if the player chooses to play strategy 2. Therefore, the gain can increase. Okay, therefore, the profit will not come below 3 lakhs. It may increase by 3 also, but it will not be below 3 lakhs. That's why the criteria is for gain is to find out the maximum among the minimum gains by every strategy. Same in case of losses, if the player is going to face the loss, say, the player is going to face the loss, say, by playing the three strategies, then what the player is going to do, he will find out the maximum loss maximum loss due to every strategy. Then once he find out the maximum losses, then he will try to minimize the loss. Therefore, among this example, minus 5, minus 3, minus 1. Therefore, there is a loss of 5 lakhs, 3 lakhs and 1 lakh if he chooses to play the 3 strategies respectively. Therefore, the minimum he will select. Therefore, minimum among the maximum loss is 1 lakh. Therefore, the loss may be less by 1 lakh, but it will not increase. Okay, so the criteria suggested by the Newman in order to find out the profit is maximizing the minimum gain and minimizing the maximized loss. Right? This was actually the criteria given by the Newman on which the whole game theory is based. Therefore, the game is defined as an activity between two or more persons involving activities by each person according to the set of rules, and at the end of which each person receives some benefit, satisfaction, or it is going to suffer the loss. Okay, so this is the competitive situation. Two or more person involved. At the end of every game, every person is going to have either a benefit or the loss. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to study some characteristics of game theory and basic definition. Okay, let us move forward then. Characteristics of game theory. The first strategy is, the first characteristic is chance of strategy. We try to understand what is the chance of strategy. Whenever a game is played between the two players, every player is going to make some activities. Every player is going to choose some activities, or he has some options to play the game. Now, if in a game activities are determined by skill, if the activities are determined by skill, then it is called as game of strategy. If the activities are determined by skill, it is called as game of strategy. And if the activities are determined by chance, then it is called as game of chance. Correct, no? Suppose we are playing a cricket game, okay? And if a player want to choose his strategy, and if he choose the strategy by skill means what? Suppose a captain want to decide whose bowling should be there or whose batting should be there. What the captain is going to do? Captain, suppose he want to select a batsman. Then what the captain is going to do? He will think of who is going to bowl. Right? What is the current situation? And what are the skills of the corresponding batsman? Correct, no? What are the skills of the corresponding batsman? Depending on the skills, if he chooses his strategy, depending on the skills of the corresponding batsman, if he chooses the strategy, then this is called as game of strategy. Okay? And if unless of the skills, okay, unless skills, that is by ignoring the skills, if a captain select a batsman by random, that is by chance, मराठीमध्ये आपण त्याला अंदाजे पंच म्हणतो ना. If he is going to select the batsman randomly, then this is called as a game of chance. This is called as game of chance, right? Therefore, there are two possibilities: game of strategy and game of chance. Let me write both the strategies. If in a game, activities are determined by, I think someone has unmuted the mic. Please mute yourself. If the activities are determined by skill, it is said to be game of strategy. Okay, I just want to ask students, is it necessary to write everything? Otherwise, I can just explain and we can move forward because writing will take much time. Because everything is there. Whatever is there in the book, I am going to write the same. Therefore, shall I discuss only? I'll just write the key points. Every in detail statement will be there available in the book itself. Is that okay to students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just write the key points, which are the points important to us. Okay? Because writing will waste our time. That is what I just want to tell you. Okay. Therefore, this is what a game of strategy. Therefore, if the activities are determined by skill, this is called as game of strategy. Now, if the activities are determined by chance, activities are given by chance. Okay? By chance means there is no strategic discussion behind that activity. Then this is called as game of chance. Then this is called as, I'll write like this. Okay, key points I will write only. Okay, instead of writing the whole statement. Okay. Therefore, whatever the game we were considering in our daily life, some games may be of game of strategy and some games may be the game of chance. But in this topic, we were going to consider the simplest models of game of strategy. Okay. In this chapter, we will select the games of strategy. In this chapter, we will select the games of strategy. That is, the strategies are selected by the player depending upon their skill, not by chance. Is that okay? Next characteristic is number of person. What will be the number of person? Number of persons is persons playing the game. Correct, no? A game is called as an n-person game if there are n persons playing the game. This is called as n-person game. Okay. Now here the person, this concept person doesn't mean an individual, or it is not actually means a person. This concept was actually it can be an individual or it can be a team also. This can be an individual or group or team. Okay. Therefore, the word person is not restricted to a one human being. Therefore, this may be an individual, this may be a group, this may be a team. Therefore, if suppose the game was played in groups, in teams, okay, suppose there are two teams involved in the game, then this is called as a two-person game, right? This is called as two-person game. Now, here the word person means it's a team. Next point is number of activities. Number of activities. What is the activities? Activities are the options to play the game. Right now, number of activities are the options to a given person to play the activities. I think in the last example of military situations, what we have discussed, what possible number of activities will be there to play the game in military battles, in war situation. What will be the number of activities? Infinite one can say, no? Right? Therefore, the activities may be finite or infinite. Okay? Activities means the possible number of alternative the person chooses to play. Right? Therefore, the activities may be finite or infinite. Next is number of alternatives. Number of alternatives is nothing but number of activities, no? Available to a person. Number of alternatives available to a person. Then what will be the number of activities available to a person? It may be again finite or infinite depending upon the number of activities involved in the game. Okay. Therefore, again this may be finite or infinite. Finite or infinite. Next, fifth is information to the player about the past activities. Information of the player. Information to the player about past activities. What can you think about past activities? Whether every time the past activities of a person is known always. Hmm? Suppose a game is playing, game is occurring. Whether the information of the player, how the player is going to play the game is available from his past activities or not. What do you think?
Not always, ma'am. Sometimes.
Not always, correct. Sometimes we know, sometimes it is not known to us. Okay. Therefore, information to the player about his past activities may be completely available, may be completely available or partly available or partly available or not available also. Right now? Correct? Therefore, the information to the player about his past activities may be known, may not be known, or partly it is known to us. Next is payoff. Next is payoff. See, if you just look at this word, pay off. Pay means what? Something to give. Right? No. Therefore, payoff is actually a quantitative measure where each person is going to receive at the end of a game. Quantitative measure. Okay. As we were discussing game theory at the last definition we have seen, no. Game is defined as an activity between two or more persons by set of rules and etc. At the end of which each person receives some benefit or suffers a loss. Correct, no? Therefore, whatever is the quantitative measure of that loss or profit, the quantitative measure is called as the payoff. Is called as the payoff. Is that okay? Quantitative measure at the end of every game a person is going to receive. If VI be the payoff, if VI be the payoff, that is the quantitative measure, that is the outcome or result at the end of the game he is going to receive. Payoff of player PI, say, of player PI. Okay. Then this is going to be there in the next definition. Let me continue on that. So the quantitative measure, then I will tell you afterwards. Okay, therefore what is this VI? Suppose a game is occurring between the two businessmen, right? There is a game between two businessmen. Therefore at the end of a business, what VI will be? VI will be the profit or loss suffered or obtained by every businessman. Right now, this VI, this payoff, may be in rupees, maybe in points, maybe in some other terms. Okay, so this is the quantitative measure obtained by a player at the end of every game. Is that okay? These are the 6 characteristics of a game thing. Chance of a strategy. If the game is determined by skill, it is game of strategy. If the activities are determined by chance, that is called as game of chance. But in this chapter, we are going to study game of strategy. Next is number of persons playing the game. Okay, the person is the broader concept, not an individual. It may be a group, it may be a team as well. Number of activities may be finite or infinite. Therefore, as the number of activities are finite or infinite, the number of alternatives or possible ways available to the person is finite or infinite. Information to the player about the past activities may be completely available, may be partly available or not available. And payoff is the quantitative measure, that is the entry obtained by the player at the end of every game. Okay. Now let me go for the next definitions, some basic definitions. Any difficulty about the characteristics?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me move towards the basic definitions. The first definition is competitive game. Already we have seen what is a competitive game. What is competitive game we have discussed? This is the competitive situation. Right? No? Game is not limited to only sport. in this topic. This is any competitive situation having four properties. What are the four properties? We will just have a look. Okay. What is the property is? First property is there are finite number of competitors. Finite number of competitors or players. Competitors or players. We cannot start a game with infinite number of competitors, right? No. The possible alternatives to play the game may be infinite, but the competitors or players must be finite. Okay. Now, each player has finite number of possible activities. Each player has finite number of activities. Means we are going to avoid all the situations in which there are infinite activities. That is military battle. There are infinite number of activities. Okay. Third we will say a game is said to occur. A play is said to occur. A play is said to occur. Game झाला असं कधी म्हणणार? Play is said to occur when each player chooses an activity. It will be started. Each player chooses one of his activities. Chooses one of his activities. Okay. And number 4, every combination of activities determines an outcome. Every combination of activities determines an outcome. There should be some outcome of every activity. That outcome may be points, that outcome may be money, or that outcome may be anything else. Okay, which results in gain of payments to each player, provided each player is playing uncompromisingly to get as much as possible. Right? At the end of every activity selected by the player, it should be have an outcome. Okay. Whenever the outcome is in terms of profit, it is positive. In terms of losses, this is called as negative. If there is no profit, no loss, then this is said to have outcome to be 0. Okay. Therefore, a competitive game is actually a competitive situation having 4 characteristics or 4 properties. First, finite number of players or competitors. Each player has finite number of activities. A play is said to occur when a player chooses one of his activities, and every combination of activities must determine an outcome. Is that clear? Let me go to a second definition. Second definition is zero-sum game. Zero-sum game and non-zero sum game. Non-zero sum game. Now, as the name suggests, zero sum. For whose sum is 0? The sum of payoffs. If it is 0, then the game is called a zero-sum game. Okay. Let me write the definition. In this type of game, actually, the loss of one player if it is a profit of another, and vice versa. See what I'm saying? The game in which loss or profit of one player is exactly reversed to the other. That is, if player A and B are playing the game, profit of A becomes the loss of B, or loss of A becomes the profit of B. That is, nothing comes out from the outside. Nothing comes from the outside. In this case, the game is called as a zero-sum game. Let us try to understand. There are 2 players playing the game. What we were discussing, player A's profit is the loss of the second player. Suppose a player A has a profit of rupees 10 lakhs in a business or in any competitive situation. Then what will be the loss of player B? loss of player will be 10 lakhs. Therefore, the loss we were going to denote by a negative entry. Therefore, this will be a profit. Correct, na? A gets a profit of rupees 10 lakhs. So as B gets a loss of rupees 10 lakhs. Therefore, what is the total sum of the payoff? These two are the payoff entries, no? Quantitative measures at the end of a game. Therefore, 10 rupees, that is number 10 is the payoff to A, minus 10 is the payoff to B. Therefore, if I make a sum of both the payoffs, what will be the value? Is it 0? The value is 0. Therefore, this is called as zero-sum game. This is called as zero-sum game. Profit of one player is the loss of another player if it is a two-person game. What for n-person game? What for n-person game? In n-person we cannot say na profit of one is loss of another. Suppose there are n players, say P1, P2 to Pn. Okay, and suppose let me write their payoff, that is outcome at the end of a play will be say V1, V2 to Vn. That is player P1 gets a profit or loss of rupees V1. Player P2 gets a profit of or loss of rupees V2, so on up to the player Vn. And if we make the sum of all the payoffs, and if the resultant is 0, then this is called as a zero-person game, zero-sum game. This is called as zero-sum game. Are you getting me? No rupees, no profit comes from outside. Nothing comes from outside. As we have discussed in the last example of a rummy, no? Every player contributes rupees 10, say. Okay, and whoever wins. Right now, this is a nice example to understand, a rummy example. Suppose 3 players were playing a game. 3 players were playing a game. Everyone is contributing 10 rupees, say. Okay, then what is the total amount? What is the total amount? 3 players were playing a rummy game, contributing 10 rupees each. Therefore, the total amount collected will be 30 rupees. Correct, no? Am I audible to students?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what will happen at the end of this game? One player is going to win. Correct, na? Suppose there are 3 players. Let me name the players A, B, C. One of the players is going to win the match and he will get the profit. Correct? He will get the profit. Then what will be the profit and loss to the every player we will discuss. Suppose this B is going to win the match. This B is going to win the match. Then what will be the profit and loss to every player? Can anyone tell me? What is the loss of player A?
0. Minus 10.
Yes, it is minus 10. Good. What for C?
Minus 10.
Minus 10. What for B?
There will be profit of 30.
Profit of?
30.
How much profit B will have?
30.
No, out of
20
that 30, 10 rupees is himself, na? He is having his 10 rupees. Therefore, what profit he will get? Is it 20 rupees?
20. Yes, ma'am.
Because 10 rupees is came from his pocket itself. Therefore, he will get an extra 20 rupees at the end of a play. Correct, no? Therefore, these are the profit and losses to every player. Then what will be the sum of these entries? Minus 10 plus 20 minus 10. The sum will be 0. The sum will be 0. Therefore, this kind of games are called as zero-sum games. This kind of game is called as zero-sum game. Okay. Understood? What is zero-sum game? Okay. Therefore, in mathematical steps, it was defined if there is n persons playing a game P1 to Pn, at the end of a game, if they get the payoffs of rupees V1, V2 or payoff of V1, V2 to Vn, then if summation Vi is equal to 0, the game is called as zero sum game. The game is called as zero sum game. Here is we can write this as V1, V2 and V3, correct? No? Therefore, addition V1 plus V2 plus V3, we got 0. Okay. Now, whether any money comes from outside the three players, whatever is the 30 rupees collected, this 30 rupees is the contribution made by the players itself, players themselves, right? No? Therefore, no money, nothing comes from outside in this game. Nothing comes from outside in this game, right now? Okay. Or suppose there is a game of chess. Two persons were playing a game of chess, and a competition was organized in such a way that whoever is going to win will get a 10 rupees. Winner will get a 10 rupees, say. Okay. Suppose there are two persons, A and B, playing the game. No doubt one of them is going to win. One of them is going to win. Therefore, suppose A wins the game. Therefore, he will get 10 rupees. What for B then? May I say B suffers a loss of 10 rupees. Because as he has lost his game, he is not going to get this 10 rupees. Therefore, he suffers a loss of 10 rupees. Therefore, what is the sum of the payoffs finally? 0. Correct, na? The sum of the payoffs at the end will be 0. Therefore, the games in which the sum of the payoffs at the end of a game is 0 is called as zero sum game. Is called as zero sum game. Okay, let us discuss what is non-zero sum game. Now the definition is clear. What is non-zero sum game? A game which is not a zero sum game, right now? A game which is not a zero sum game. Because we have seen in detail what is zero sum game. Okay. Can anyone suggest an example here? Let me give one example, then you can tell me the example. Suppose there was a marketing company, we will consider marketing company, as we have discussed, this is a game. Okay, two companies were there which came into the market. Two companies are there. Suppose those are the sanitizer making company. Both the companies are the companies who is going to produce the sanitizers. Both the companies came into the market producing the same product of sanitizers. Okay. Now, depending upon the marketing strategy, depending upon the advertising of both the companies, A and B, how many factors matters? Marketing, quality of the product, and advertising as well. Okay, and one more factor is cost. Depending upon these four criteria, the business made by both the companies will be different. Correct, no? The business made by both the companies will be different. Suppose a company A makes a profits of rupees 10 lakhs. In this business, suppose A company makes a profit of 10 lakhs. What for B company? Suppose one of the point by the company is weaker. Either the marketing is weaker, or the quality of the product is weaker, or advertising is weaker, or cost is more. Because generally people do not buy the costly products if it is easily available in low cost in the market. Therefore, if one of the point of this B company is weaker, the B company is not going to make the profit as that of A company. Suppose it has made a profit of only 2 lakhs. It has made a profit of only 2 lakhs. Right? Then what will be the payoff by A and B? Payoff entries by A and B. Yes. Payoff means either profit or loss. Okay, therefore A company makes a profit of rupees 10 lakhs. B company makes a profit of 2 lakhs. Okay, what will be the sum of payoffs now? 10 plus 2, it is 12 and it is not equal to 0. Why? Because the profit of first company does not makes the loss to B company. Correct, na? Is everyone getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
करेक्ट ना. म्हणजे ए कंपनीला 10 लाखाचा प्रॉफिट झाला म्हणून बी कंपनीला 10 लाखाचा लॉस होईल असं आहे का? असं नाहीये ना. याचाही प्रॉफिटच होतोय 2 लाखाचा. एक कंपनीचा प्रॉफिट 10 लाखाचा झालेला आहे. पुन्हा आपण काय सांगितलं, प्रॉफिट कशावर डिपेंडेंट आहे? या 4 गोष्टींवर. तर मार्केटिंग असेल, क्वालिटी असेल, ऍडव्हर्टायझिंग असेल, कॉस्ट असेल वगैरे वगैरे. एक 2-4 फॅक्टर्स, अजूनही काही फॅक्टर्स असतील. मी इथे फक्त 4 लिहिले, बरोबर. तर या 4 फॅक्टरवर डिपेंडेंट ए ला 10 लाखाचा प्रॉफिट झालाय, बी ला 2 लाखाचाच प्रॉफिट झालेला आहे. तर मग त्याचे पे ऑफ एंट्रीज कशा आल्या? ए ला रुपीज 10 लाख येईल, बी ला 2 lakhs येईल आणि याची सम मी जर केली तर 12 लाख येईल. 12 लाख म्हणजे 0 येत नाहीये ना. म्हणजे या गेम मध्ये बिझनेस, या गेम मध्ये प्रॉफिट ऑफ वन प्लेयर डज नॉट गिव्ह द लॉस टू अनदर. करेक्ट नो? होतं का असं?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, this is a good example of non-zero sum game. This is a good example of non-zero sum game. अजून काही एक्झाम्पल्स तुम्ही सांगू शकता? येस. बरीच एक्झाम्पल्स आहेत ना अशी. त्याच्यामध्ये प्रत्येकाचा प्रॉफिट दुसऱ्याचा लॉस असेलच असं नाही. दोघाला इंडिव्हिज्युअल प्रॉफिट येतील, दोघाला इंडिव्हिज्युअल लॉस पण होऊ शकतात. म्हणजे समजा आता याच मार्केटिंग कंपनी आहे, 2 बिझनेस कंपनी आहेत, ए आणि बी. दोघंही मार्केटमध्ये उतरलेत सॅनिटायझर घेऊन. पण काही काही कारणांनी त्यांचे प्रॉडक्ट चाललेच नाहीत समजा. आता का चालले नाही त्याचं कारण बरीचसे असू शकतं. ऑलरेडी बाजारात काही कंपन्या असतील ज्या चांगल्या चालत असतील. तर समजा याला पण लॉस होऊ शकतो, ए ला, आणि बी कंपनीला सुद्धा लॉस होऊ शकतो. त्या केसमध्ये सुद्धा याचा सम काय होणार आहे? 0 होणार नाही. बरोबर ना? लक्षात येते सगळ्यांच्या?
Yes, ma'am.
ऍक्च्युली बुक मध्ये ना पोकर एक एक्झाम्पल दिलेलं आहे, पोकर गेम. आता मला ही पोकर गेम काय आहे हेच माहिती नाहीये, त्यामुळे मी हे एक्झाम्पल घेतलं नाही. आता कसं म्हटलंय बघा याच्यामध्ये, non-zero sum game is the poker game in which certain part of the pot is removed from the house before the final payoff. आता पोकर गेम काय आहे हे शोधावं लागेल आपल्याला. नाव ऐकून आहे मी, पण एक्झॅक्टली मला माहिती नाही पोकर गेम बद्दल. तर तुम्हाला काही माहिती असेल पोकर गेम बद्दल तुम्ही सांगा. तुम्ही तर तो नॉन-झिरो सम गेम कसा आहे बघू शकतो. मला हे एक्झाम्पल जास्त प्रॉमिसिंग आणि सोपं वाटतं. बुक मध्ये पोकर दिले, पोकर इज अ नॉन-झिरो सम गेम असं म्हटलेलं आहे. ते पोकर काय आहे हे शोधत बसावं लागेल आपल्याला. नको जायला आपण तिकडे सध्या. समजतंय का नॉन-झिरो सम गेम आणि झिरो सम गेम? टेक्स्ट बुक सेंटेन्सेस मी लिहिलेले नाहीये.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll move towards the next definition called as strategy. Strategy is the word already we have used. What is strategy? Yes. Strategy is a rule. Strategy is an option. Strategy is an alternative available to the person, no, to play a game. खूप वेळा स्ट्रॅटेजी हा शब्द वापरला ना आपण. स्ट्रॅटेजी काय आहे, कशी असावी. क्रिकेटचे फॅन खूप असतील आपल्याकडे तर त्यांना माहिती असेल. स्ट्रॅटेजी डिफाईन करतात ना, स्ट्रॅटेजी सिलेक्ट करतात ते. असा गेम खेळायचा आहे. दुर्दैवाने आता तुमचे IPL बंद झाले नाही का? व्हॉट इज अ स्ट्रॅटेजी देन? Strategy is rule for decision making. Strategy is the rule for decision making. Correct na? Decision making in advance of the play. In advance of the play. करेक्ट ना? स्ट्रॅटेजी आधीच डिफाईन करावी लागते नाही का? गेम संपल्यावर स्ट्रॅटेजी डिफाईन करून उपयोग आहे का? किंवा गेम चालू असताना स्ट्रॅटेजी डिफाईन करून उपयोग आहे का? म्हणजे समजा मॅच होणार आहे क्रिकेटची 2 टीम मध्ये, ए आणि बी टीम मध्ये, तर ए टीमला आता स्ट्रॅटेजी ठरवायची, तर तो काय करेल? बी टीमचे प्लेयर्स कसे आहेत, त्यांचं मागचं बॅकग्राऊंड चेक करेल, कोण कसा खेळतो, हे सगळं विचार करून कॅप्टन आणि कोण बाकीचे लोक असतात ते काय करतात, आधीच स्ट्रॅटेजी ठरवतात ना. कोण बॅटिंगला, कोण पहिला येणार, बॉलिंग कोणाची पहिली असेल, कुठल्या वेळेस काय बॉलिंग करायची, बॅटिंग करायची, हे जे सेटअप रूल आहेत ना डिसिजन मेकिंगचे, ते कधी ठरवले जातात? इन द ऍडव्हान्स ऑफ द प्ले ना. येस और नो?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now there are two types in the strategy. One is pure strategy. One is pure strategy. Second is mixed strategy. Okay. Now in pure strategy, if the player knows exactly what other player is going to do, okay, if a player know exactly what the other player is going to do, okay, that is a deterministic situation. That is a deterministic situation. एक्झॅक्टली माहिती मला पुढचा कोण येणार आहे, पुढचा कसा खेळणार आहे, तर त्याला काय म्हणणार होतं आपण? प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी. प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी. ओके. therefore प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी is a decision rule. Pure strategy is decision rule. Always to select particular course of action. Particular course of action. स्ट्रॅटेजीचं अजून एक एक्झाम्पल असं सांगता येईल ना. स्ट्रॅटेजी इज अ रूल फॉर डिसिजन मेकिंग. समजा आपल्याला आता परीक्षा आलेली आहे, सेकंड इयरचे विद्यार्थी आहेत तुम्ही सेमिस्टर 4ला. परीक्षा समजा एक तारीख डिफाईन झालेली आहे, जूनच्या पहिल्या आठवड्यात तुमची परीक्षा, तर तुम्हाला स्ट्रॅटेजी करावी लागेल ना अभ्यासाची. करावी लागेल की नाही करावी लागेल? काय स्ट्रॅटेजी
Yes, ma'am.
करणार? 5 पेपर आहेत बाबा आपल्याकडे, प्रत्येक पेपरला एवढे चॅप्टर्स आहेत, त्यात हा पेपर आवडला नाही, अमुक पेपर अमुक एका मॅडमने शिकवलेला आहे त्यामुळे समजलं नाही, असं काहीतरी असतं ना डोक्यामध्ये. मग त्याच्या अकॉर्डिंगली आपल्याला काय ठरवावं लागतं? स्ट्रॅटेजी ठरवावी लागते की नाही? रूल रूल काहीतरी ठरवता ना तुम्ही अभ्यासाचा, आणि ठरवत
Yes, ma'am, we do.
तर तुमचा गेम ऑफ चान्स आहे. गेम ऑफ चान्स म्हणजे काय अंदाज आहे तुमचे? असं
No,
आहे का?
ma'am.
नाही ना. आपल्याला काय करावं लागणार आहे? स्ट्रॅटेजी डिफाईन करावी लागते. बरोबर. कुठलीही गोष्ट असू दे, स्ट्रॅटेजी डिफाईन करावी लागते. एवढं कशाला? छोटस एक्झाम्पल घ्या. किचन मध्ये एखादा पदार्थ बनवायचा, आपल्याला एखादी रेसिपी बनवायची, काय करावं लागतं त्याच्यासाठी? तो पदार्थ बनवायला लागणारे पदार्थ आहेत का बघावे लागतात, नसेल तर आणावी लागतात, त्याची पूर्वतयारी करावी लागते. बरोबर ना?
Yes, ma'am.
भिजवून ठेवायचं वगैरे असेल तर हे सगळं आधी ठरवलं. कोणतंही एक्झाम्पल आपल्या लाईफ मधलं आपण जर घेतलं तर ते काम करण्यासाठी आपल्याला एक प्रकारची स्ट्रॅटेजी ठरवावी लागते. ओके. आता गेम मध्ये प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणजे काय? डिटर्मिनिस्टिक सिच्युएशन आहे. डिटर्मिनिस्टिक म्हणजे खेळणारे प्लेयर इतके मुरलेले खेळामध्ये की त्यांना माहिती आहे पुढचा काय खेळणार आहे. माझी ही चाल असेल तर पुढचा काय खेळणार आहे हे जर क्लिअरली माहिती असेल तर त्याला प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणतो आपण. आणि मिक्स्ड स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणजे काय? एखादा प्लेयर कसा खेळेल हे जर मी गेस करत असेल, इफ अ प्लेयर इज गेसिंग ऍक्टिव्हिटी टू बी सिलेक्टेड, राईट ना? इफ अ प्लेयर इज गेसिंग as to which activities be selected, to be selected by the other player. By other player. गेस करणार आहोत ना आपण ते. आता हा जे गेस करण्याची जी सिच्युएशन आहे ना याला प्रोबॅबिलिस्टिक सिच्युएशन म्हणणार आहे. याला काय म्हणाल आपण probabilistic situation. What is probabilistic situation? You are going to say that yeah, this player may select this with the probability 60%, 70% like this, na? Therefore, this is called as probabilistic situation. And whatever the pure strategy, this is the deterministic situation. Okay, लक्षात येते का?
Yes, ma'am.
येते लक्षात? प्रोबॅबिलिस्टिक सिच्युएशन आणि डिटर्मिनिस्टिक सिच्युएशन. आता मिक्स्ड स्ट्रॅटेजी मध्ये एक्झाम्पल सांगायचं झालं तर समजा क्रिकेट आहे आणि धोनी तुमचं बॅटिंगला येणार आहे, तर काय करणार आहे? धोनी काय करेल? तो बॅटिंगला चाललाय तर तो गेस करू शकतो ना बॉलिंगला कोण येऊ शकतो बाबा अपोनेंट टीम मधून, बरोबर आहे ना? तर तो काय करेल? गेस करू शकतो ना. आता धोनी कसा मुलीला प्लेअर आहे तो ऍक्च्युली सांगूनच टाकेल हा ये, बट एक एक्झाम्पल म्हणून तो गेस करू शकेल. आता मला ऍक्च्युली खरंच प्लेअरची नावं पण माहिती, तर मग प्लेयर समजा अमुक एक प्लेअर आहे, हा येण्याची प्रोबॅबिलिटी 60% आहे, हा येण्याची प्रोबॅबिलिटी 20%, 30%, असं तो एक अंदाज बांधेल नाही का. तर हा जो अंदाज बांधण्याची सिच्युएशन आहे ना प्रोबॅबिलिस्टिक सिच्युएशन म्हणतो आपल्याला. कारण त्याला प्रोबॅबिलिस्टिक सिच्युएशन आणि याला मिक्स्ड स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणतात. याला मिक्स्ड स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणतात, राईट. इथे आपण डिनोट केलेले सिम्बॉल्स आपण घेतलेले. xi is the probability of choosing the probability of choosing the course or activity I. I नंबरची ऍक्टिव्हिटी सिलेक्ट करण्याची प्रोबॅबिलिटी xi आहे समजा, आणि आपल्याला प्रोबॅबिलिटीचा रूल माहितीये. व्हॉट इज द रूल ऑफ प्रोबॅबिलिटी? सम ऑफ प्रोबॅबिलिटीज इज 1 ना. सपोज इट्स अ n person game, then what will be the sum of probabilities? x1 plus x2 plus xn is equal to 1. And what is the another we know? All these probabilities are non-negative. Correct, no? Mathematically, a mixed strategy for the player with possible courses of action. Right? Possible courses of action. Probabilistic situation. लक्षात येते का? प्युअर स्ट्रॅटेजी म्हणजे प्लेयरला माहिती आहे एक्झॅक्टली पुढचा प्लेयर काय खेळणार आहे. मिक्स्ड स्ट्रॅटेजी मध्ये प्लेयर गेस करतोय पुढचा प्लेयर कसा खेळणार आहे. प्रोबॅबिलिस्टिक सिच्युएशन आपण त्याला म्हणतो. ओके, स्ट्रॅटेजी समजला?
Yes, ma'am.
नंबर 4, 2 person झिरो सम गेम. आता आपल्या टॉपिक मध्ये शक्यतो हेच आहेत सगळे 2 person झिरो सम गेम आपण सॉल्व्ह करतो. जेवढं आपल्या सिलेबसला तेवढंच आपण देणार आहे. 2 person झिरो सम गेम यालाच रेक्टँग्युलर गेम्स असे म्हणतात. As the name suggests, 2 person. So for how many number of persons we have playing the game? Number of person playing the game is 2. Okay. What is zero sum game? As we have only 2 players, what is the meaning of this? If the profit of one player is the loss of another player. Correct, na? Is the loss of another player. This is called as 2 person zero sum game. Next is payoff matrix. I think this is the last definition we are going to discuss. Payoff matrix. Payoff matrix. Okay. Payoff matrix. We know matrix is the concept we were using generally to make a systematic arrangement of Yeoman entries. Whatever the matrix we have of m cross n order, then this matrix was used to give the systematic arrangement of of Yemen entries or Yemen numbers. Correct, no? Now, if suppose we have a two-person game, if we have a two-person game, means there are two players, say A and B, okay? And suppose the player A has the yum activities. Player A has yum activities to play. Player B has n activities to play. Player B has n activities to play. Then after every choice of play of A and B, the game must give us the payoff, that is either benefit or loss in terms of a quantitative measure. Therefore, if the player A is suppose having some yum entries to play, player A, and suppose it is going to have some yum entries, some M activities to play. Okay, and here to this side, let me write player B. And how many activities this player B has? 1, 2, dot, dot, up to n activities. Therefore, how many possible combinations will be there if player A chooses one activity, player B chooses one activity? किती possible activities आहे तिथे? किती पॉसिबल वेनी गेम खेळला जाऊ शकतो? ए कडे m चॉइसेस आहेत, बी कडे n चॉइसेस आहेत. किती जास्तीत जास्त किती पद्धतीने हा गेम खेळला जाईल ना? येस, ओके. मला वाटतं छोटं घेऊया आपण. प्लेयर ए कडे दोन ऑप्शन्स आहेत खेळण्याचे, प्लेयर बी कडे पण दोन ऑप्शन्स आहेत खेळण्याचे. मला वाटतं याच्याऐवजी ना मी असे लिहिन कॉम्बिनेशन घेतलं सर. थोडं सोपं करून सांगतो. आवाज तर येतोय ना क्लिअर?
Yes, ma'am.
Player A has two options to play, A1 and A2. We have just named the possible activities of player A. Player B has two possible activities, say B1 and B2. Okay. At a time, a player can select one activity, right now. Therefore, if a player A chooses to play with an activity A1, what are the possible activities to B? Two activities. Na? Therefore, a possible activities can be written. First possibility is if a player chooses A1 activity, the player B can choose B1 or it can choose B2. Correct? Then, if a player A chooses an activity A2, say, then again B has two choices. If it can play B1 or it can play an option B2. Therefore, in all, how many choices, how many possible activities are टाइपने हा खेळ खेळू शकतात ते? ए कडे दोन चॉइसेस आहेत, बी कडे दोन चॉइसेस आहेत. टोटल चॉइसेस किती होऊ शकतात?
4.
4 होऊ शकतात. तर टोटल चॉइसेस किती आहेत माझ्याकडे? 4. टोटल 4 choices to play a game, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? Okay. Now we want to select one choice. We want to select one choice which will give a gain or profit, I can say, to one of the players. This is what an activity. Similarly, if A has m activities, B has n activities, that is m choices A have, n choices B have, then what are the possible choices, total possible choices to play a game? Mn.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct or not? Mn choices. Okay. And in every choice, player A receives some profit or loss, player B receives profit or loss. Why? Because by this definition, na, payoff. What is the definition we have written? Payoff. A quantitative measure a player is going to receive at the end of every play. Right? Therefore, if for all those choices, mn choices, for all those mn possible ways to play a game, every choice will give either profit or loss to the player A. Okay, now we want to write down mn elements arranged in a systematic manner, and we were doing the arrangement with the help of this matrix. Okay, therefore here look at the situation. Player A has m options 1 to m. Player B has n options to play 1 to n. I can call the strategies. Player A चा m strategies आहे, player B चा n strategies आहे. Okay, now what we want to write? We want to write the payoff at the end of every choice, at the end of every possible choice, right? If player A chooses, if player A chooses first activity, also player B chooses first activity, then let us say there will be a payoff of rupees 1, payoff say V11, payoff V11. Actually, whenever we are writing this we were writing as a payoff matrix to player A. Payoff matrix to player A. Player A means we were writing from the point of view of A. That is, V1 gets a profit of V11. Similarly, if player A chooses first activity, player B chooses second activity, then the payoff will be V12. Like this, there are payoffs in the first row. Similarly, I can say the payoff in the remaining possible choices are like this. Therefore, how many entries we have written here? mn entries we have written now, and those mn entries are actually the payoff to a player A. Okay, now if this Vij entry, if this Vij entry is positive, what does it mean? This is a profit to player A. This is the profit to player A, and it will be a loss to player B. याचा जर प्रॉफिट असेल तर याचा काय आहे तो लॉस आहे. Why? Because we were in 2% zero sum game, right? If Vij entry is negative, what does it mean? This will be a loss to a player A, right? And if the entry is 0, then there is no loss, no profit to player A. No profit, no loss. Are you getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is called as payoff matrix to player A. Why it was written in the matrix, understood? Because matrix is actually giving us the systematic arrangement of mn entries. Here the person A has m choices, m strategies, B have n strategies. Therefore the possible strategies to play the game is mn, and at the end of every choice, every player is going to receive a payoff, either loss or profit or null, right now? Therefore, this is what a systematic arrangement. This is what we have written with respect to player A. Okay. Now, if I want to write the same matrix table with respect to player B, what should I write? Payoff matrix to B. Same again, 1 to n choices it will have, right? And what for player A? 1 to m choices it will have. What will be the entries? For the same game I am saying. So for the same game, player A gets a profit of rupees 11, B11 for 11 choice, right? Therefore, if it is a profit to player A, what will be a profit to player B? Is it minus V11? Because whatever is the profit to player A will be a loss to player B. Therefore, what about the entries? These all are the entries of profits of A. Therefore, if I am writing the same matrix with respect to player B, then all the entries should be written negative. Or one can write with the same situation. No problem. or it can be written as with the same again, player A, player B, 1, 2, N. I have changed the positions. No. Sometimes it was given with the same positions as well. So what are the entries? Minus V11, minus V12, minus V1. Yeah. Same entries with a negative. Minus Vn1, minus Vn2, minus Vn1. Is that okay to everyone? So this is called as the payoff matrix. Okay. So the rules are row designations to for each matrix are activities available to the player. These are the row designations, no? Row names 1 to n. These row designations for each matrix are activities to the player A. What about column names? Column designations. Column designations are activities available to the player B. Right? Everyone getting me? Row designations are the activities available to the player A. Column designations are the activities available to the player B. Entry Bij. Entry Bij is the payment to the player A in A's payoff matrix, and when in the A's payoff matrix, when A select ith activity and B select j activity, right? And with zero sum with 2% zero sum game, profit of A is loss of player B. Is it okay? Any
Yes,
difficulty
ma'am.
in any basic definition? If you have, you can ask. In the next lecture, we will go for the examples directly. Let me repeat what we have seen today. Basic definition. First basic definition is competitive game. It was defined to be a competitive situation with finite number of competitors, finite number of activities. Play is safe to occur if player chooses the game. Zero sum means finally sum of all the payoffs is zero. Non-zero sum game is sum of playoffs is not zero. Strategies, rule of decision making. Two types of strategies are there: pure strategy and mixed strategy. 2% zero sum game, payoff matrix. These are the concepts we have studied in the today's lecture. If you have any difficulty in today's lecture, you can unmute yourself and ask me. In the next lecture, we will go for solving the examples of game theory. If you understand this payoff matrix, then only it will be easy for you to understand solving the game, solving the examples. Is that okay? Yes, any
Yes, ma'am.
difficulty if you have?
No, ma'am.
Good. Let me stop for today then, assuming that you have no difficulties for today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will go for the example. Thank you for being with me.